Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Greetings, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 35. On this episode, I chat with my new friend Lindsay Mack, who is an intuitive healer and tarot reader. We explore tarot for supporting mental health, processing trauma, and looking inward. Lindsay is a delight, and I was just in awe of her story and how she was able to personally use tarot to process her own childhood trauma and mental health, and how she's now doing that for others. It's really beautiful, and I learned a lot, and I was just delighted by everything she said. She even referenced Harry Potter, which is a win in my book, and should be yours too. Lots to dig into on this episode. I think you'll really love it. One great thing that Lindsay is doing, one of many great things, obviously, she's offering You, Me, Empathy listeners 10% off her Tarot for the Wild Soul online class. 10% off. So she has this online class called Tarot for the Wild Soul, and enrollment closes September 4th. So if you go to the show notes for this episode, which is at youmeempathy.com, there's a link there in the show notes. You just click there, and you can use the code EMPATHY at checkout for 10% off the course. So go to youmeempathy.com, click on the show notes for this episode, episode 35, and there's a link in the show notes to go to the course, Tarot for the Wild Soul, and use the code EMPATHY for 10% off the course. Isn't that cool? Isn't that exciting? I'm really excited. I may do it myself, thinking about it. Any hoozles, Lindsay's a delight, and I think you'll love her, as I do. And before we get to the episode, though, I did want to call out a couple of exciting things that have happened for this show. 2 new iTunes reviews. Woohoo! So one new iTunes review is from the username Bonbug31271. The title says, Spreading Much Needed Awareness. I'm thrilled to add this podcast to my must-listen list. Great conversations, sharing personal stories, and knowledge. Just what our world needs right now. Thank you. Thank you, Bonbug31271. You are a delight and the best, and I love you. And I'm going to read one more iTunes review. This one is actually from Cameron. She says, insightfully crafted, beautifully resonant. The review goes like this. This is an invaluable, peer-led resource for mental health, wellness, and emotional understanding. Known strikes a balance in each podcasting, curating a safe space where relevant, raw, transparent content about sensitive topics is shared with vulnerability and therapeutic practicality. I have found listening to be so helpful in understanding my own mental health journey. Listening to the stories shared here, and more importantly, how Known creates space in each episode for feelings to be fully honored, aired, validated, felt, and communicated insightfully has helped me to grow and connect to my own feelings in ways I didn't previously know was possible. Thanks for being such a feely human with a feely heart, and for showing me through your journey that being feely isn't being broken or busted, but actually rather beautiful. Known. Keep on sharing on. Cameron, that, my goodness, that warms my heart, and all these reviews just warm my heart, and I'm welling up a little bit. I'm welling up! There is a well, and is up. And I just so appreciate it, you guys. I'm so touched that this little show, this little podcast is making a difference in your lives, and it is making a difference in my lives, and you guys make a difference in my life. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I also, before we get into the episode, I just wanted to call out a couple of new Patreon subscribers for You Me Empathy. And those two lovely humans are Jem Hill and Becky Leonard. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing on Patreon. That's huge. I'm awestruck, and I'm just awestruck by your kindness and your beauty and your generosity. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. And that is it for my little intro. Please enjoy this episode with Lindsay Mack. And don't forget to go to the show notes again to get 10% off Lindsay's course, Tarot for the Wild Soul. Use the code EMPATHY at checkout. And that link is in the show notes for this episode. Okay, enjoy episode 35 on Tarot for Mental Health and Trauma with Lindsay Mack.
La 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 la. You, me, empathy. Yeah. La la la.
Welcome to You Me Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You Me Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am wildly ebullient to explore tarot for mental health with intuitive healer, holistic counselor, and Tarot for the Wild Soul creator, Lindsay Mack. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, good. I'm excited to have you here on You Me Empathy. Before we get... So for the listeners, we are talking about tarot, the world of tarot, which is something I admittedly know nothing about. So I'm very excited to learn a lot from Lindsay over the next hour or so. But before we get into that, we always start the show with an emotional check-in. How are you doing today? How has your week been, Lindsay?
I'm a little tender this morning. I'm a little tender. I'm feeling the new moon eclipse that we're in today. I don't always, but I am today. And yeah, it literally just started raining too. Yeah, I'm feeling tender but solid, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, it does make sense. Tender and solid. I think I've been there quite a bit.
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
What that looks like for me is that the inner parent is present and in the driver's seat, and the little one is allowed to feel how she feels in the back. So sometimes the little one's in the front and it's all tenderness, and that's beautiful, but there's not always solidity. And it feels like the elder in me is holding the space. So, as a survivor of pretty extreme abuse and trauma, that's just been something that's been cultivated for a while. So to me, tender and solid is when the inner little one is free to feel what she feels, and the inner parent is really there to say, you can keep feeling that way and we can show up for everything in the day really gently.
Wow, that's beautifully stated.
Thank you.
I love the way you frame the world. I've been listening to your podcast over the last few days, and the words you use to sort of frame emotional sort of grounding and how we're feeling in the world, it's unique, and it's not something I'm accustomed to, just the language itself, and I'm very fascinated by it, and I love the pictures you paint with your words.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm right back at you because, as I mentioned, I'm a fan. So it's a beautiful way that you speak and share about the world, so gentle and clear. So just
thanks.
had to give that one back to you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Well,
yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. For me, this week has been a lot of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
So a thing happened earlier in the week, and by the time this episode comes out, the listeners will know if it happened or not, but my wife and I put an offer on a house.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Thank you. You know, it's something that we never thought would happen. We live in Orange County, and there is a little pocket. There are a few pockets of Orange County we really love, and one of which is this area called Trabuco Canyon. It's sort of horse country. There's dirt roads, you know, goats everywhere. It's very unique, and that's sort of more our vibe. And we found something that, you know, kind of fit with what we can afford, and we put an offer on it. And it's been a little bit, you know, we've never done this. We've never gone through this process, so it's been very new and sort of looking at our finances in different ways and sort of projecting into the future and all that jazz. And, you know, we're in the waiting stages now to see if our offer would be accepted or what have you. So it's been a little more nerve-wracking than I'd like it to be, but a lot of excitement as well. So that's where I'm at.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Congratulations. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Yeah, it shouldn't be so. I mean, the buying property, it's so complex. I mean, just going through the paperwork with the realtor, it's like 50 pages of.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Oh boy, yeah. So.
And then the intensity of that commitment. It's so funny that you're saying this because I've been working on a book proposal for a little while, and over a year, and finally got to the point where I connected with an agent that I love and loves me, and I signed with them, and that's a big deal, obviously. But like, I don't know, there's just so much that comes up around the big, good steps that like the more I take them, and when there's paperwork and contracts and like legal things involved with these steps that feel so expansive, but yet kind of, at least for me, kind of make a part of me want to like just go in a cave because I'm like, I don't know. Because it's like the best thing. And also something that you really do have to kind of go through your own process with. And it's not quite stressful, but just, it's a different kind of commitment that's just so big and awesome, but also like, whoa, you know, very eloquent, I know, but
no,
it's really intense.
It is really intense. And I think the idea that you're speaking to is this, you know, we as humans, we like to look into the future and we want to understand everything about it. This, you know, we want to control. We want to figure it out. And the truth is that there's really nothing in the future that we can control, or maybe there's a little bit that we can. And these big sort of life-altering decisions can be scary, but a lot of times they can be foundation shaking in the way that we need.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very
so
much so.
I think that's how my wife and I kind of looked at it. Like, this decision would be a quite a big challenge financially over the next couple of years, but it's also a bold decision and something that would challenge us and
Yes.
allow us to grow in ways that we haven't.
Yes. And sometimes that's reason enough to do something.
Totally.
Like, yeah, I totally agree with that. And it resonates with me strongly.
Oh, good. Well, and I'm not going to allow you to gloss over the book deal and finding an agent. That's big news. Congrats.
Thank you so much. Not quite a book deal yet, but hopefully on its way to be.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Well,
yeah.
Fingers crossed for that.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Look at us.
And
we have
for
fingers
you.
crossed on both sides.
I mean, absolutely. That's a nice moment.
Yeah. We're both twisted with our fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Together and for each other.
Indeed. Well, let's get into your story, Lindsay. I want to. We're going to explore tarot and tarot for mental health and trauma, but I want to first uncover your mental health journey a little bit and speak to. Here's a question I always ask guests: speak to some seminal moments that maybe sort of contribute to who you are today. I know you have mentioned openly and courageously, as a survivor of child abuse, trauma, PTSD, these things that are life-altering. Mm-hmm. So can you walk me and the listeners through a couple of seminal moments for your own mental health origin and journey?
Mm-hmm. So the one that came to me quite clearly while you were just sharing that is that, and in some ways I feel like I'm still on this road, but probably the most seminal and the most profound and the moment that had the most impact was that, and I'll back up before I get to that seminal moment. Unfortunately, I was raised by a very mentally ill, very manipulative, very physically abusive person. And obviously, mental illness does not equal abuse, of course. But this was someone who was not in touch, in reality, and had issues beyond her disorders. And it was every day. There was no difference. There wasn't like good days, bad days. It was the same day for 18 years with varying degrees of horror, basically. And unfortunately, I have a very big family who all knew and just didn't know how to step in and be advocates. And that's, I wasn't allowed. So I had, from the time I was very young, pretty severe problems. Like I had a lot of sensitivity and a lot of anxiety, and for good reason. There were some horrible things happening on both sides of my parents, unfortunately, but one of them was way more than the other one. And because I was surrounded by this gigantic family, all these aunts, all these uncles, good people, just didn't know what to do with that. I didn't ever get to own that A, I wasn't crazy, and B, that this was abuse. And it was, I had, my life is like, I never had normal. There was always hypervigilance. There was always behavior that isolated me from other people, because it would be like crying in the middle of class or whatever. I was a very sad, strange, intense little kid, and grew up into a very intense, very sad, very strange teenager. And I just thought I was crazy and that this was a bad run of the dice for me in this life. It was such a hard life. There was so much to overcome in it that I had to bury and that I didn't even know was something to be open about. Knew that abuse was happening at home, but just didn't understand how I could come to a place of ownership of that. And then when I was 20, I think I was 27. So that's 27 years old. I'm now an adult. I'm with my partner, and my PTSD at that time had gotten so bad. It was always bad. And I would go through these periods of just like getting hit and like literally hit with post-trauma and like would still be being traumatized. So it would be like, I'd get hit with PTSD. Of course, I didn't know that. Now I do later. And like, I would still be beaten, still like trigger warning for anybody. I don't think I'll mention that again, but there would be horrible things that would happen with no real support or anchoring, nobody being around me, all these people, and no one saying like, sweetheart, are you okay? Is everything okay? Or, so I was just lost in the dark and didn't know about anything that really was happening to me. I just was a prisoner of my own brain chemistry completely. And when I was 27, I had a very dear friend who's now not in my life, but I still like, she's just in my heart, you know, just like a friendship you grow out of, who at that time was interning for a very well-known, very intelligent, very helpful, prolific pioneer psychotherapist who was talking about anxious attachment therapy. And my friend was helping her with her book on that. And my friend at 27 years old, it was the first time that she had ever said to me, hey, I think like all these things you're trying to do and the effect, because at that time at 27, my PTSD it was affecting my life. It was never, school was difficult, jobs were difficult, my relationship was becoming difficult. I just couldn't figure out what to do. And I kept trying to fix it with like regular therapy, basically.
Yeah.
And my friend finally was like, honey, I think like this is like, I'm learning about this. And I think this is like major. I think this is much bigger than like you have anxiety or even you have trauma. I think this is bigger. And at 27, I went to a therapist, and to that psychotherapist. I couldn't really afford her beyond a few sessions, but she said to me, this is PTSD. This is complex PTSD. Do you know that you have this? And I said, I don't. I had not thought of that there was post-trauma. I didn't understand, and I didn't understand complex PTSD. And it was like I was almost 30 and I didn't know that. And even though it was hard and intense to hear that was one of the things that broke me open and I consider to be the most seminal moment of my journey with mental health, because it gave a name and took out the terror of just being crazy.
Right.
Because I then started to realize, like, is there's space between who am I without this trauma? A functional, sensitive, but functional person who doesn't have the same issues my mother does, but there's still sensitivity there. That ownership was the first time that I ever felt like, oddly, a harbor. So I was like, okay, no one ever told me. I didn't understand. I'm 34, so I think now, I'm young, but I'm not young enough to have grown up with internet culture in the way we have it now, where there's so much more, I think, space and support for like engaging with what you've got going on. Like engaging with the idea that there are places to talk about trauma. And I just didn't have that at 27, or if it was happening, I wasn't engaged with it.
Right.
That was like the moment for me where I started to, it was like looking for sinus help my whole life. And then realizing it was like a heart problem. And
Mm-hmm.
it changed everybody that I went to, my conversations. I was learning more. And it took me 3 years. But that was the moment that began the journey of me. It took me 3 years to do it, but breaking from my abuser and most of my family. And even now, like, I'm 34 and I will say, I'm like still dancing around, like
Mm-hmm.
whether or not some of them have a place in my life to this day.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There's some that are just of my blood family. They're great. But it took 3 years to get there. But that was it. Because you just don't understand when you're being inadvertently completely gaslit your whole life and suffering, that there's something in there and that it's not just this blanket thing of, you're damaged. You're damaged beyond repair. And the more I start, and so the minute I found that out, kind of my life changed. And the first thing I did, because I had zero money, I couldn't go back to school. I was like, I want to do the best thing I can do. And I want to help people. I want to learn more about my body. And like, that's when I went to like school for coaching, and you can do an extension on that. And that's where the title holistic counselor comes in. It's like, I'm not a counselor, but the idea of like counselor meaning therapist, but I had wanted to be somebody who could serve people who had trauma too. Just naming it gave me, I feel like, the first taste of what is now my life. So that was the most seminal thing.
Wow. There's a lot there. And
yeah, there is a lot there. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. A couple of things. First of all, I very much relate to this. I mean, and you hear this all the time, this idea that people are in a place of trauma and we need that mirror. We need the mirror of people in our lives who will be there for us just to get out of it, to look back at ourselves and see, oh, this is not right. This is wrong, right? This is disordered, or this is, not the healing path for me. But it's so easy and so understanding that you would be in this place without that framework, without that mirror, and it becoming, that's just the reality. That's just your identity, and we as sufferers, as trauma abuse survivors, we just accept that unless we have that mirror, unless we have the words. Like, the words are so important to understand. And I'm so glad you found that eventually.
Me too. Yeah, me too. And same with you, because it's crucial. And I honestly think that's why I am now such a fierce and passionate advocate for that.
Yeah.
Because, just it deserves to be named, and is in its own way trauma an unbelievably profound initiation. It's not something I romanticize, but it is its own journey, its own very unique path in the woods. And I do think that however much it has caused suffering for me, it's also given me this life and given me my sense of purpose and service that I honestly think probably is wound up or bound up or woven into some larger reason that I incarnated here. But that's just my own belief system.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I enjoy it. But like, I can appreciate it's here. It's got to be bringing some kind of medicine. There's got to be something on the vine for my evolution, regardless of how uncomfortable it is, And that was the only way that because I have an odd kind of attitude where if I just understand that it's bringing something, I can bear it. Like, I get it. Even if it's to help others, and not in a martyrdom kind of way, but really, like, I can move through something like that. Before I really had a name to what was going on with me. It was just void.
Yeah.
It was just insanity. I was like, this is so random. I have this beautiful life. I'm enjoying my life. I'm going out. And then, of course, I'd be triggered by something that I now look back on and can track so empathically and empathetically and compassionately within myself, and can now doula myself through expanding into the next whatever. But I didn't have any of that languaging when I was going through it. So you just need it. You desperately need those mirrors. Absolutely. In order to have any kind of perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like this. I like what you said about it being, that trauma being, it has informed your identity and has contributed to the work you're doing now. And that should be recognized. And it's hard to sometimes, but I think that it may be a lot harder in the long run if we just deny it or try to ignore it. We need to kind of look at it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we can look at it through those mirrors. We can look at it through therapy. We can look at it through understanding, once we have the language of mental health, as part of our language itself, as part of how we describe and look at the world. Like that's how we look at it and understand it and heal, I believe.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So when you got this diagnosis and you talked to this therapist about having complex PTSD, walk me through a little bit of the next couple of years. Like what are some of the initial insights that you gathered during that process?
Well, what happened was that I started to learn about how, I didn't really dive into a full committed, a full acknowledgement of the PTSD, to be honest with you, until I was 30. And that's because I had a nervous breakdown before I got married. And so I had to then, that's the thing. There's only two choices really. You either keep going or you don't.
Yeah.
But those 3 years, it was once I knew that I had CPTSD, it still took me a while to fully face that. And I was still kind of dissociating into I was a very destructive person when I was in my in those days. And so it would be I would get triggered and I would dive into work, and then I would feel better just because chemistry would lift or something. And I would just be all right, see you later. No more therapy. And that was kind of the cycle that I walked for years. And so it took me until I was about 30 years old. And so much happened then, but it was very much a spiral of, I was a cycle that I had to break of getting literally to the worst possible low. And then I would reach out for help. And then as soon as I would feel better, I would step away from help. Because I think at that time I was still not wanting to face that I had these things.
Yeah.
So I was so afraid to become my mom. So I just didn't want to go there. I didn't have, but the seeds that did get planted in me were things like coaching. And that's when I found mindfulness, without which I would probably be dead. And that, it just started to all inform on itself. And believe it or not, I found a lot of solace in helping others. I had this kind of little wellness practice in Manhattan where I coach people, and that just felt so good. It was sort of dissociating my stuff through helping other people, which was a pattern I had for a little bit. But I had very much a mind of a goldfish. If I felt horrible, I was desperate and hysterical for help. And when I felt better, I did not want to look at it at all. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I was 30 that I broke that cycle and basically said, we're done to my family. without explanation, because there really didn't need to be. And I really sought help from a doctor, which I share because I needed a psychiatrist. And it probably saved my life. And some people, like, I had to like figure out how to afford that. But like I needed one and for a little while, and needed help and needed to take time off work. And so there were a bunch of things that I came from no money, no means, no savings, no nothing. And I had no choice. I had to do those things. But then I kind of had to get back in a little sooner than I probably would have had I had more means, just because you have to work. But the story, without getting into random details, is that once I found that diagnosis, it took me so long to actually own that I had to make foundational changes to begin to heal it. Mm-hmm. So I was still like talking to my mom. I was still fucking around with that. Like there had been no amends, no apologies, nothing. There was still abuse happening. There was still manipulation, literally, that I was a party to. And it took me 3 years to even begin to see it. And then the breakdown started to happen because I got engaged and my mother was more active in my life than she'd been in a long time. My mother she doesn't leave the house, so she doesn't come out. But when I was getting engaged, she like tried to be like, quote, good mom. And it just was so triggering. And I had not expected that because I didn't fully understand that it wound up tripping me off chemically in a way that was so bad that I couldn't recover. And then I had like adrenal collapse. And so I don't even know that she really understood. I didn't understand. I was still trying to understand the extent of it. Because I was somebody who would do things to myself that were essentially like cutting my own throat. And then I'd be like, why am I bleeding? I don't get it. Yeah. And it just took me so long to be like, oh yeah, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is confronting. She needs your consent. You need to, and then then at 30, the right group of people came into my life and there was a full bowing over to, this is a part of me. A lot needs to change. Everything in my life changed. It was like literally starting from square one, a total death, and that actually is when tarot came in, because I hadn't been doing that really before then. So it took me a little while. But once I finally I had to get to that point before I was able to kind of wake up and see I need to make a shift that like that's like down into the basement of the house, like all the way down to like the bottom. And I need to carve out the whole house and rebuild. And that was so scary and so overwhelming. And that's not everybody's story. That's not what has to happen to everyone. I had to go there just because of my own stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so that was the journey. It was essentially like 3 more years of fucking around and, doing what I could. And then, I don't know, the universe was just like, basically, I feel like we love you too much to keep you dancing around, without really processing this. And at 30, around 30, that was when I started to like process and really honor, this is a part of me. It's not going away. It's not something that I'm going to hide. It's not something that is a problem. This is a part of my service, and it's a part of my service to myself, that there be an understanding of this. And because, so anyway, what I was going to say is because it took me so long to be recognized and honored for my experience as a trauma survivor, that's part of why it's like on the second paragraph of my bio, because it's very hard when you've had any kind of trauma, abuse, especially physical abuse. I need my people to be like informed. Like I can't be touched really for body work. So I hadn't thought about, starting basically this school of thought for healing trauma with tarot, but it just occurred to me, why on earth wouldn't I say this is a safe space?
Yeah.
If you've had any kind of trauma, I see you, I understand, and I'm here to listen and honor you. So that was kind of what kicked off the tarot piece, but that didn't come in until I basically made the choice to say yes to myself.
Yeah. A couple of things. I think, you keep saying it took 3 years or by the time I'm 30. I think it's important to call out that, there's no set time, or time frame. We all have our journeys, and there's no right length of time and because, I think we can get caught up in that. I'm not saying you are, but I certainly did. And it took me a long time as well to kind of get out of the sort of the heart guard I sort of put on as a child and start really recovering from the anorexia and the trauma that I experienced as a child. And it took a long time, but that time is part of the journey. And the opening up and the healing was at the right time. And I know that's sometimes hard to look back at because we are experiencing, awful things perhaps, but, just be kind to yourself, to you, Lindsay, and to the listeners that you have your own journey. What you're going through isn't going to last forever. And things change all the time. So that's an important thing to say. The other thing I would say is, I guess I'd want to ask you, before we get into tarot, which I'm excited to do, what were some of you had mentioned sort of found, basically starting from scratch. What are maybe a couple of things, foundational sort of emotional things or mental things, even just day-to-day things that you changed during that time?
I don't know that. Well, I had to change my diet basically overnight, and I think that made a huge impact. I didn't realize that I had a pretty severe gluten allergy, actually, and
hey, welcome to the club.
I mean, and my psychiatrist knew it. And the first day I saw her, she was like, please stop eating it immediately and just give it a shot, because I'm pretty sure you have it. And I got tested and I did. So I listened to her because at that point I was like, I'm going to do whatever anyone tells me and honor that. And I did. And alcohol. So I went sober immediately overnight. And that was always a problem for me, was alcohol. So there were these commitments to the body that I made first. I walked into a psychiatrist's office, walked out, and was like, well, I'll never have that again. And I haven't, other than when I've gotten gluten by accident or have gone through an experience of some sabotage. This was years ago, but being I don't have a gluten allergy. And then of course, but there were some fundamental body things, but honestly, the biggest thing was just giving myself permission to block my mother's number.
Yes.
That pretty much changed it all. That was it. That was the common denominator. And once I had that space, and also was gracious enough to let my other family members think that I was the problem, then it was just freedom. Freedom to feel and to hold my little one through whatever she was going through, my inner little one. Freedom to be incredibly angry and not have to bottle it up to talk to her on Sunday. Freedom to be where I am now. It broke me from a cycle of constantly selling out inadvertently my inner kid to placate some need to talk to a woman that I had nothing in common with, had no real sense of connection with, and that I really didn't enjoy. So that was pretty much the start of it. And then from there, I mean, a whole world began to open up of different ways that I could begin to practice more compassion, more patience, to listen to my body. It was rapid, I would say, from that time. And, also to your point before, I also want to say to people listening, I feel like this is a lifelong journey, and one that I have really settled into the waves of, and the understanding that parts of the shrapnel come up when they're ready. And so I'm in a time right now, and have been since about April, where I'm just processing a whole new experience of stuff that's ready to come up. And it's not, I'm completely functional, great. Nothing is impacted. I'm lucky in that way, but it's definitely like just as much work as my work is. So right now, but it's beautiful because now I get to really develop a new level of intimacy with myself. But when I connect with my family, and honestly, that sort of happened because I did around April, and really was like, okay, it's really just the removing of the trigger did all of the work, essentially, that was really
amazing.
what changed. Yeah, that was really what changed. And then from there, just there was so much more space to feel into, well, what feels good here, what doesn't.
Right.
So those were the main factors that changed.
Yeah, well, I commend you for that boundary you created. That's so hard, especially when it comes to direct family. I've been there myself,
Totally.
so I just commend you for taking that step. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's transition into tarot. So before we kind of get into how you started in tarot, can you give me, I have a general understanding of tarot, but I want to understand it. So how do you, when you describe tarot to people for the first time, how do you describe it?
Okay. Tarot is a set of 78 archetypes that all of us, no matter if we've ever touched a tarot deck, understand fundamentally on some level. They're ancient, we know them, and somewhere in our DNA we have a sense of all of them, because they're all just pieces of the human condition framed in these kind of artistic interpretations. There's 78 archetypes that are comprised of the major arcana, the minor arcana, and the court cards, that when you put them all together are a map to our human existence, all the beautiful stuff, all the ugly stuff. And tarot, as it can be utilized, is really just a map to the present moment in a way that helps us to identify the difference between our soul's truth, our real higher self truth, and our brain chemistry. And it can help us determine between what the difference is and how we can bridge the two, and essentially acts as a bridge to something higher. And that's what tarot is.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I think I understand, but I'll probably find some more understanding as this conversation progresses. What was your first experience with tarot?
So when I was, I grew up in New Jersey, and when I was 12, I was in like a cool bookstore in a town called Montclair. And I had not ever seen a tarot deck before that I can remember, but I saw one in the bookstore, and I guess my dad didn't know what it was, because he's pretty Republican and not cool about all that. But he bought it for me. And because of my personality, I got 2 books along with the deck because I wanted to teach myself. And my first experience was kind of just fucking around with how do these cards make me feel? What do I think this means? And
at 12 years old, what
yeah.
drew you to them at that age?
Well, I'm a witch, so that's the first. Is just I am, like a witchy soul, and I've always been. There's never been a separation between me and that wildness. It was just sort of learning those things. But yeah, like 11, 12, like 11, I discovered Tori Amos, who's been very
I love
important.
Tori Amos.
I mean, and like at 11, I befriended this like really cool 17-year-old that was so lovely to me, but introduced me to like Sleater Kinney and was the first person to ever say the word to me, bisexual. And at 11, I was like, I didn't even know what I was, had a name.
Yeah.
Wow. So like 11 and 12 were these years when I wonder what was happening in my chart at that time, I guess, because it was like, I heard the word, like Wicca for the first time, which was just, Wicca was just my introduction into the more holographic world of identifying as a witch. But, tarot just looked like something like that. And as a kid, who was being abused, I just wanted to have something that felt like a harbor. So it looked like a harbor to me. I was like, wow, like this deck that could like tell me what's going to happen. And like, that's what I thought, so I wanted to be like 12 years old. I was like a little punk at 12. Like I wanted to be 12 with my deck in my bag, like cool.
Yeah. You sounded cool listening to Sleater Kinney, Tori Amos, little witchy soul.
I guess I was, but I didn't feel that way, but I was constantly made fun of. But now looking back, I think Little Linz was pretty cool. But yeah, I bought them. And because it's my attitude, when I do something like that, I want to learn. So I bought books, and I hated the books that I bought, and didn't understand them. And even at 12, I was like, this is like irresponsible, because most tarot books are pretty fatalistic. And I just tried to sort of guess my way and develop my way into these meanings. But I gave readings to everybody, middle school, high school, college. Like I often say, like if I had to be fact check on that, there would be so many people who would say that I'm still kind of connected with. Like I totally remember getting a reading from you, like in the lobby of the video store or whatever it is, like, So I just played and did not ever go any deeper than just kind of, again, fucking around with them. Yeah. And I got like another deck around college that I sort of connected with, not really. I got given a deck at the age of 21 that took me years called the Mother Peace Tarot, that took me kind of years to get into. But actually, the Mother Peace is one of the best decks for anybody who has trauma. It's really soft. And that was the only deck I owned at the age of 30 when I started to get kind of these tarot gigs. So I kind of associate the Mother Peace with this very important time of healing. But I don't know. It was just fate, like a happy accident. Like I just literally didn't think anything of it. It's always been in my life, but it sort of like waited for me, to really come in and study it deeply.
I love that it was this harbor, as you describe, being a safe haven from the trauma, and then it becomes this sort of lifelong, part of you. I relate to that in that, I sought, fantasy novels and things, totally. And I read a lot of, Good Kind and Terry Brooks and all these people, and that was a sort of safe haven or a harbor for me.
I really identify with that as somebody who still has every novelization of the Star Wars movies, like somewhere in. Do you remember those books that were written about? You may not have been into that, but there were these authors that wrote these book series about the Star Wars universe, and like. I remember Han and Leia had these twins. Yeah, that was just every minute that I wasn't like reading tarot or listening to Tori. I was reading like those books. So I so identify,
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how'd you go and start your first sort of tarot teaching?
So I Okay, when I was a kid, I knew that there was something missing with tarot. I would read these books and I would think like, that feels really irresponsible to basically state that a card means betrayal, heartbreak. I was like, how could anyone know that? But I just didn't go any deeper with it. How I got started with my tarot teachings was completely not planned, and was, again, the ladies of one of my favorite podcasts, My Favorite Murder, always talk about this, like stumbling up the stairs. It was like stumbling up into things rather than down, but like into ideas and opportunities. And that's really how it felt, that when I was processing my trauma after my breakdown at 30, when I wasn't able to connect with my teacher, my therapist, my psychiatrist, and I would have the bottom drop out from under me, the only anchor, because as there's PTSD and you're working with it and you want to process it, you really have to have an anchor of some kind. And whether that be a prayer, a song, a practice, or like a book, whatever it is, anchors are important when you're in that. And so I, without really thinking about it, just started to go to my tarot deck. And without really thinking too much about it, would say in these moments, how can I be with this? Just, that's it. How can I be with this? And before I would pull, I would pray, which is my way. It's not everybody's way, but I would pray and I would just say, I don't feel any kind of spirit in this moment. I don't feel my center. I don't feel anything, but I'm willing to consider it's out there. And if it is, how can I best be aligned with that, even if I don't feel it? And then I would pull, and tarot decks are, this is like, not everybody says this. I do. They're sentient. They pick you. They're like the wands in Harry Potter. So some of them can't go with you on those kinds of journeys, but I happen to have one that could. And it would like go there. I would ask a question. I'd kind of feel the card in my hand, and I would do this like bathroom floor, subway, like in the shit. There was no sacredness about it at all. And all of this that I'm telling you was not anything conscious on my part. Like, it wasn't like someone had told me to do it or I'd heard of it before. I was just doing what felt right. And I started to inadvertently use the tarot as a gateway through the trauma process. And I would follow this little energy or this little invitation through the full journey in the brambles. And I would come out of the other side of it an hour later, 2 hours later, whatever, a day, a week later. And I would just, it was a language that I could frame my experience in archetypally, that I could understand. And in ways that I don't quite have the wording yet for, I was somehow able to pull these cards, and the energy of the card made sense to me about what the invitation was and how I could best take care of myself through the stress and the contraction. And I just kept doing that. And the more I did it, the more I started to understand that the cards were working and capable of being frameworks for something that had never been written about in a book. And it wasn't just me. It was something for everybody. And so by accident, I stumbled into what it was to use the tarot as an anchor point for truth in a moment that felt so real and overwhelming, but was ultimately untrue. And to clarify what I mean by that, when you have a panic attack, that is absolutely real, but is not always the truth. The truth is that we're not in danger. We feel that we are.
Right.
And it's fucking horrible, horrendous, terrible chemical feeling, but it's not the truth. The truth is that you're safe and that it's just a chemical experience. And like all chemistry, it will pass. And unless there's a foundation of anchoring, you can completely lose your mind, and a panic attack can fly off into any kind of experience, is prolonging it sometimes, which happened to me for years. And so the tarot was inadvertently a way for me to say, okay, there is a feeling right now that is like a hurricane. What's the truth? And it would reflect that to me. And so it wasn't a denial, but it was a way for me to anchor in, okay, you know, the invitation is this. And sometimes I would do things where I would say, you know, what's the feeling? And I would pull a card for that. And I would say, what's the truth? And then there would be this kind of middle card where I'd say, you know, how can I bridge the two? Or what does my body need? Or whatever. So I just was pulling for what I needed. And the deck that I had, like, took me there. And so slowly but surely, very slowly, through other people telling me, like, I've literally never heard this card interpreted this way, and it's blowing my mind. Through other people, I was just sharing how I was feeling about things on Instagram and what I would understand. I would be pulling, after a while, like, I started pulling cards, like, for the collective, and the response was strong from the beginning. And I started to realize, like, I wonder, like, has no one ever explored the tarot as a tool for moving or midwifing you through chemistry to the other side? And then once you've done that, what have you then learned about the value of that card, even if it's a difficult card or a spiky card? So after a while and I also stumbled up into teaching. Literally, I started teaching because someone said to me 4 years ago, can you teach me how to read tarot? And I was like, sure. Can we figure out what that costs, like, along the way?
Yeah.
And just, that was like, I never had to really look for students again.
Wow.
And it became my full-time job in under a year.
That's remarkable.
It is remarkable, but it wasn't because I tried. It was that I did my own work with it and started to have something to say about that I think people just found to be so empowering and clarifying, because it's not about my interpretation. It's what this can be for you. It's how it can serve you and support you through these moments. And because tarot is an interpretive art form, really, the way that someone describes the card is a full indication of their work that they've done themselves. And it's not a problem, but if someone is saying that, I know this means nothing to you, but if the 9 of Swords is like fear and betrayal, and like, that's as far as they've gone. They have not actually explored, okay, when I pull this card, what's happening? What am I feeling? What's the taste? Where am I in the day? And what is the invitation here? You know, what if I pull up a quote, scary card, and I don't feel scared? Then what? Well, then we have to say, then the fact that people are saying it means fear doesn't apply. Because if you're not in that experience and it comes up, then there's something different going on. So I was just following the cards. This sounds real kooky, I know, but it was actually a pretty practical process where I was just like, well, I know that there's no future and we're birthing it in every moment. So if the tarot is an invitation back into center, it really is here to help us birth the most aligned future by centering us in what we're experiencing, what we're being invited to understand in any moment. And that has always been how I've read. Like, not in middle school, I don't think, maybe, but that was just, I started reading at the same time as I was processing. It all happened at the same time. And so I was learning with other people as I was learning with myself. And there's never been a difference in how I've read. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to anybody. All I know is that if they have a full awareness of what's here and what's possible, they can walk away and move forward in whatever way feels good for them. So that's the only way it really makes sense to me. But it became something that I now called soul tarot, which is just a way of saying that we're reading tarot to pull up the volume on that very quiet, intuitive, higher self voice that we're not always aware that we have, especially if our brain chemistry is so loud. So it's just tarot to bring the volume up on that voice and to honor the brain, but put it in the back seat where it belongs and not in front of the driver's seat. And even now, as I'm talking to you about this, I have a very hard time describing the process because it wasn't a strategic one. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I still drone on a bit about what it is, and maybe I'm not even being that clear, but it really was like, it helped me so much and was something that I legitimately uncovered through just doing my work, and other people wanted to learn about it. So it's really just that, like, I have not planned a goddamn part of this whole thing, and still I'm not planning it. It's like I just kind of go along with like what feels good to share and talk about. But it's just because it helps me. Like, I live it. Nobody taught. I've never had a teacher, like, and I'm all about teachers, but it's just been this. I have nowhere to point my lineage to, other than these beautiful other facilitators that have taught me mindfulness. My teachers taught me so much, but she's not a tarot teacher. So it's just been this process that's developed out of genuine interest and genuine, like, healing. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I think you're describing it well. I love that it, during that sort of discovery process, you were being open and vulnerable and sort of working through that process openly, on social media and things. And I think that's definitely something I relate to a lot in the power of that, and that validation that you get from an audience who's relating to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's so fascinating. And I also think that, you mentioned this sounds kooky, but it doesn't sound kooky to me. It sounds like a genuine, sort of heart-leading way to come to understanding ourselves and healing ourselves and wayfinding and discovering new mirrors back inwards. And I think that's all wonderful, amazing stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's kind of explore. I think you described it very well, but let's get into maybe a little bit of nitty gritty in terms of tarot for mental health and trauma. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about some of the work you're doing specifically with your clients? With your, I know you have events and online teachings and things. Talk about that stuff a little bit.
So, basically, Soul Tarot is tarot for mental health and healing trauma, period. Because if there's any kind of chemical, any kind of chemistry, we want to be able to, again, bow to that chemistry and see what's under it and find out if we need to, what we can do, or if we can just bow to it and let it be there. So I am an intuitive, and my intuition and my connection to whatever it is helps me along the way. So there's a way that it's basically just a way of exploring, teaching, presenting, inviting people into utilizing tarot for themselves. And it really is different. So with my events, I'm teaching people the basics of tarot in the framework that I understand it in, which again is called Soul Tarot. And the work that I do with my clients, my job is to listen to them and pull around and help them to figure out how they can connect with themselves through these archetypal invitations. So it really just is a way of presenting the tarot in an empowering facet. So my follow-up question to that is, do you want to know what the tenets of that are, or sort of how it's presented? Like, what exactly is the question around in terms of events and stuff, what I'm exploring in there?
I guess, like, let's say I'm coming to you with, someone who has experienced childhood trauma, who is currently in the process of addressing that trauma through therapy, through talk therapy, through mindfulness practices, through yoga therapy. And I want to maybe find another avenue of looking at that and understanding that. And I'm still suffering in ways from trauma. Mm-hmm. And I want to explore soul tarot as a means to do that. Mm-hmm. What are the first steps for that person, and what, take me through some, maybe you don't have to explain all of the things, but maybe take me through a few different practices you're going through with that person.
Well, the practices, unfortunately, are pretty it's a completely boring process. Like, to take you through it, like, there's nothing going on there. There's just, I am listening. So first of all, if you were to come in and do that, we would dive right the fuck in. And I'd be like, great, that is such a beautiful, strong intention. Let's immediately drop in together, pull cards, and we'll see what's in front of us. And then we would go from there. But mostly what I would probably do as someone who came in with such a strong intention, such as yourself, is I would say, let's talk about the fact that there is probably a pretty profound destiny in here somewhere for you in terms of healership. And let's talk about where this might take you in terms of an initiation. Because so often people that I see who want to explore the deeper themes of why these things are coming up for them have something to offer other people. So we would probably talk about that. But 99.9% of times, people are coming in and they're not asking that. They are coming in and saying, I feel crazy. I'm totally lost. I'm totally scared. I've had postpartum for however long. I've had this for however long. I've had, I can't seem to stop being anxious. I don't know what to do. My job is to listen to that. And depending on the client I have in front of me, my first job might be to refer out and to say, what I'm feeling right now is that we should hook you up with a postpartum doula. I know a great one, and maybe even a psychiatrist. I know a great one. Let's start there. Maybe you're in need of some chemical support. And then what I would do is I would just pull for what they can sit in right now. Where could they find something right now? Very often it is literally people cannot find a center. And that's part of my job, is that I can drop people back into their center just by holding space and inviting them into maybe some of the larger themes of what's going on. And when I teach people in terms of events, I'm just teaching people how to do that for themselves. That's all I'm doing. So it's a very subtle way of looking at things that really does depend on what someone's coming in with. And I feel like it's my first job to be ethically minded. Is a tarot reading even appropriate for this person today? Do they actually need something different? Do we need to pull cards, or do we just need to talk? Do they need to be listened to? So it really just is an experience of being held, and the tarot kind of lights up the path along the way. So for example, if someone were to say, I'm trying to do a million different things, I'm feeling completely crazy, completely rudderless, and if I pull the Hermit for them, then my opportunity is to get to tell them, actually, believe it or not, part of the reason that you feel crazy, maybe, is because you're in the medicine of the Hermit. And the Hermit is card 9. Whenever we're in a 9 energy, it means that we're just on the last lesson before the turn of a new cycle. And the Hermit asks us to pause. It's a huge, huge, huge energy that makes us go one step at a time, like walking with a little kid or with a very old person. So that's the pace. And because it's a major, it's kind of like weather. It's a little bit bigger than us. So that's another thing too, that's something that I teach, so that if someone is working with me and is learning how to read in this way, we will talk about, let's think about here, what's the medicine of the number 9? What's the difference between the majors and the minors? What's the difference? What are we being invited into through this? And that's the whole thing, is that none of it is law. None of it is solid. It's all an invitation. So once you're offering people the clarity of that invitation, it can really free them up, and it can get them to say to themselves, well, great, if this invitation's been kind of slipped under my door and I've missed it, I'll fucking take it. I'll take this on. So sometimes it's just a matter of saying, well, for you here today, your invitation is to actually go quite slow, one step at a time. So what can you let go of, and why might you not want to? That's what we get into there. So a lot of the time now, I've done this enough so that people kind of know what to expect. But for years, I would have to kind of work and really massage people's ego, because they would come in and be like, I want to know what's going to happen. Like, that does not matter. We have to know what's here. What is here? And why is this coming up for you? So it's been I'm very gentle in the readings, but very gently just let people experience like confusion or sometimes even disappointment because they want some grand thing from me. I'm like, there is no grand thing. The grand thing comes from you. My job is to unbraid whatever's confusing and help you rebraid it. So it's just a resetting and putting that inner knowing, that inner wisdom back in your driver's seat. And that's all it does. But to describe it is lame, because it's really just like an empowerment of the person again, through really deeply seeing and pulling out things that I hear or that I'm picking up on or that I understand, because I have a really strong languaging with my deck. So I teach people how to do that too, how to pick up on the subtle things. So just like this slightly different way of serving people through the tarot. And then from there, the healing can be profoundly profound, because it can, once we get to the heart of what's going on, healing can happen, process can happen. So that's kind of how it is. It's very deep, but very different for every person.
Yeah, it doesn't sound lame. I'm just going to say that. It sounds very, genuine and from the heart, and very like from like a therapeutic space, and like centering is something we all need. And I think that, I'd imagine that people listening to this maybe don't know much about tarot, or have previous conceptions about tarot that may be incorrect, and they're being challenged here by what you're describing. Can you talk a little bit about, this kind of just came to me, can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the misconceptions about tarot?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be delighted to. So tarot does not predict the future. It is terrible at that, because the future is not fixed.
It's terrible.
So that's right. It's terrible. It is terrible at predicting the future. So it's not really a tool for fortune telling. You can use tarot. Tarot, if you want to manipulate with it, it will do that with you, just like money. If you want to do shitty things with money, it'll go with you. If you want to do good things with it, it'll go with you. It's just the container for something larger. It's just a way to use something. You can either weaponize it or you can turn it into something very gentle. So it is very easy, because people are so vulnerable when they come into tarot readings, to pull a card and be like, oh my God, this horrible thing's going to happen. I know about it and you don't. So there is something happening now that's not just me. There is a new generation of people my age who are completely changing that, who are very committed to being as ethical, responsible, as genuine, and as clear and as honest with people as they can be. So there are centuries of the old fortune-telling model associated with tarot, like it's a bunch of bullshit because it can't tell you people lie to you or try to tell you your future. There has been that human behavior associated with tarot before. That's really not what it does, and that's not what really good readers do. So that myth, it really cannot predict your future, but it can tell you and clarify for you what's here and what the next cycle might look like. But it's really up to you to feel into it and know how to use it. It cannot predict death. The death card does not mean death. It also is not evil, and it is definitely not a tool of the devil. So kind of all those misconceptions are pretty, it's a tool for pretty profound. It's a mirror is really what it is. And none of the cards exist outside of you. So many people think if you pull the High Priestess, you're going to meet some kind of female teacher. And that's bullshit too, because the tarot cannot predict, it can't be based on any externals. Otherwise, everybody who pulled a card like 10 of Pentacles, that is supposedly one that's supposed to bring you so much money, everybody would be rich.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got to use our heads about this shit. So that attitude is the cornerstone of the way I teach. It's like, if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't track, if it is in any way ableist, if it excludes someone, or if it's speaking about something or someone or a group of people, or assuming that you're just going to get a windfall, it's like, if it smells like bullshit, it's probably bullshit. That's not true. You can't rely on that. So then what's under it? So 10 of Pentacles, there's so much more to it than that. High Priestess is not about a female teacher or a female master. It's about an invitation to touch into your wisdom. So what do we do to do that? We might want to get quiet. We might want to clear out our social media for the weekend. It's just a way of considering the way we move through the world in a very subtle perspective. That's it. So it is such a powerful tool that we have really been kind of brainwashed into thinking that it is either evil or holds some kind of power that we can't go near, or that only people know how to deal, whatever it might be. There really isn't anything more to it other than it's a mirror into our essence. And when we are confused about what's going on, it can help to reset us. And that's pretty much what it does. But yeah, there's a lot of myths associated with it. But thankfully, there's kind of a whole new guard that all of us kind of at the same time separately, I think it's probably generational, but are talking about that and how important it is to now have a code of ethics for tarot. And really, I think that we're probably going to have one written within the next 5 years, I would guess. And as it's important, there's no code of ethics for it. So there's just a lot changing and shifting because of the world we live in too. So
Yeah.
some of a lot of it is misunderstood. A lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I would argue that media and film and even
Totally.
literature have perpetuated that a bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I was just going to say there's an episode of The X-Files called Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. And the whole thing is about a guy who murders fortune tellers.
Oh.
And the whole thing is is there, he keeps going to them being like, why am I going to do the things that I'm going to do? I keep seeing myself doing these things. Why am I going to do them? Like killing people. And the fortune tellers can't predict that, of course. So he kills them. But it's this whole thing of like, what's fate, what's not. And it's a very interesting take on it, but it's still like totally like wearing scarves over the head and that whole idea. It's just really out there in a way that is unfortunate and probably has set tarot back for as long as it has been set back. You know, I agree with so many examples of that. But even when I was young watching the X-Files, I was like, that's not true. It's not like what it is, you know?
Do you have any like soft spaces in your heart for, you know, maybe movies about witches, for instance?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Like
I love
Craft?
The Craft. Oh yeah, it's great. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's just fun, you know? I have so much softness in my heart for all of it. And in fact, watched a little episode of a cartoon called Craig of the Creek, I think, yesterday. And there are two little witches in it, like teenage witches, and they were using tarot cards in the woods. And it just like utterly delighted me. Like I'm here for all of that. But I, of course, understand, you know, that not everything is accurate. It's just, it's fun. You know, it is.
Yeah. Totally. Well, I want to start kind of winding down a little bit. I so appreciate you explaining the what tarot means to you and soul tarot, and I've learned a lot, and I think it's fascinating, and I'm very interested to learn more myself. Before we kind of sign off here and we plug your things, we always kind of wrap up the show talking about empathy heroes. Mm-hmm. So these are people in our lives who are just good examples of empathy. They could be fictional characters even. They could be people from movies or books, or even maybe just a quote that speaks to empathy. Mm-hmm. So, Lindsay, would you like me to go first, or do you want to go first on calling out your empathy hero?
I would love for you to go first.
Okay. So this week, my empathy hero is my friend Becky, who, you know, I don't have a lot of face-to-face interaction with Becky, but when I do, I'm always reminded of how sweet and sensitive she is, and she's been very sort of kind and helpful during this sort of house finding period for Jessica and I, and she's a doula, so I think she has a lot of just kind of experience in working through people and being very supportive and, you know, there for them. And so I feel that with her, and she's just a very empathetic soul for that reason. So my friend Becky is my empathy hero this week.
I love that. My empathy hero is also a doula.
Oh, so there you go.
I know, it's amazing. My empathy hero is my best buddy and sister and dear friend, Erica Livingston, who is a postpartum doula and a complete badass who is just like the best person. And no matter what you bring to her, whether she's going through something or not, she's just got you and honors you so completely. And this week, she was really there for me through both two very exciting things and one very challenging thing. And it's just been such a gift to have her in my life, period, but to especially have somebody who can be so such a beautiful space holder during difficulty. She has such empathy, but to also be happy for you when things are going great.
That's amazing. Those people are the best. We need them.
They are the best. I know. They're doing the Lord's work out there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And I try to get as many of those people in my life as possible. Yeah.
That's great.
That's great. Well, let's plug all your things. So where can people listen to your podcast, connect with you, learn more about your teachings?
So they can find me on my website first, which is lindsaymack.com. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Wild Soul Healing. I joined Twitter literally at 6:00 this morning. So I have no followers, but I'm on there and I'm intending to use it. I am not on Facebook, but you can find my podcast called Tarot for the Wild Soul anywhere podcasts can be found except for Spotify. We are working on it. We are not there yet. And so iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, wherever. And I think that's it. I'm doing a week-long Soul Tarot retreat at a place called Kripalu in Massachusetts in October. And I'm doing a big 8-week online course in Soul Tarot that I do yearly. Might not be happening by the time this goes up and out, but enrollment is open until September 4th. So if this is up somehow before September 4th, you can sign up through my website, and if not, it will be up again next year.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and your podcast, which I love and am a recent fan of, just hit 1 million downloads.
It did. It's unbelievable.
That's remarkable.
Thank you so much. I could not believe it in a year.
That is
crazy.
incredible. I am in awe and I'm envious at the same time.
I can't wait for that. It's going to happen to you. So just get ready. I couldn't believe it. It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge milestone that you should be proud of.
Thank you so much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And for the listeners, all of those links are in the show notes. So go check those out. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here. Hold on. I'm just going to say to Lindsay, I'm going to back up for a moment. Lindsay, thank you for being here on Yumi Empathy. Thank you for sharing your story and for, educating me on the world of tarot. I'm delighted by that.
It's my pleasure. I love your podcast. Thank you for your service, and thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's Yumi Empathy.